everybody, so we're in a bit of a different situation today. I'm sitting on my floor. I have a little bit of a different video for you today. So this has been quite a highly requested one. I always get so many comments on my Instagram about how do you edit your photos, what apps do you use, and people just genuinely wanting to know. And I always reply to your comments. I always leave the kind of things that I do and what I use, but it's a pretty extensive process. I do call it a process because I just spend way too much time editing my photos. So I feel like I can never really give you all the information you need just by answering a comment. So I thought I would just do it, put it out there and make this video for all of you that are interested in how I edit my photos. And I don't want to ramble on too much. I'm just going to get straight into it and show you exactly what I do. So this is my phone. It's an iPhone 6 in white and gold, and I really prefer to stick to iPhone photos for Instagram. I think they just come out better and they work better. As you can tell, I am a bit of a messy phone user. I never update my apps. I know people always tell me off for it. 43 unupdated apps, that's quite bad. So I'm going to open up my Instagram so you can kind of see what it looks like. I don't really have a theme with my Instagram. I kind of have just been editing photos in a certain way recently, and this is how they've been turning out. As you can see, if you go further down, it's just completely different. I've kind of got a bit of a grey thing going on. I stayed at the Mondrian recently and they had a beautiful grey marble bathroom, and then obviously London is looking pretty grey at the moment. I just kind of like the way this looks with all the grey tones. My photos aren't very colourful. There's the odd bit of colour. That was a very delicious breakfast. Here and there, but I tend to keep them mostly unsaturated. So let's talk about how I do this, and I do use quite a few apps. Obviously starting out with camera is the first thing that I do, and I take all my photos in a square, so they're ready for Instagram, they're ready to go. I know you can put different size photos on Instagram now, but I just prefer to stick with the square. I like the way that it looks. So like the rest of my phone, my camera roll is a bit of a mess. There's just a lot going on here. So the way that I kind of work around my messiness and navigate this is to go through all my photos and actually favourite the ones that I want to use on Instagram. So I think I'm going to go for this one here, and I'll just favourite it, and then let's have a look for any other ones that I want to use. This one, and I think the ice cream, and I'll put in the bed as well. So I favourite all the ones that I like the look of, that I think I want to use, and then these end up in the favourites folder. So you basically have a condensed version of your camera roll, and it just makes it easier to find the photos that you want. So then I start using my apps, and I don't really have these organised in a particular way. I do have a photography folder with a few things in that I will use later on, but the main two that I use are Afterlight and VSCO Cam. I think these are quite popular. A lot of people do use these ones, and I'll start with Afterlight and just open up my favourites album. As you can see, everything is waiting for me in there, and then I just pick the one that I want to edit and I'll put that into the app. I try to take most of my photos in natural light. I think if you've got a good photo to begin with good lighting, you don't really need to do anything to it. But this one of my ice cream that I ordered to the hotel room at 1 o'clock in the morning is taken with artificial light. It's taken with a very yellow looking lamp, so it is quite yellow toned, and I want to kind of correct that. So I'll start with brightening, and all my photos are very bright. I like them to be quite bright and airy, so I really kind of ramp up the brightness, and then I'll do a bit of contrasting as well just to compensate for that so it's not too washed out. I also like to clarify the photos. You can kind of go quite extreme with this, or you can leave it quite minimal, but I find this just really helps preserve the details that you might have lost when you were brightening everything. So those three are the main bits that I do in this app, and then I also like to sharpen it too, just to give it a nice crisp look. And because this is quite a yellowy tone photo, I'm going to just really take the temperature down. And then these three are probably my favourite thing about this whole app. This is highlights, midtones and shadows, and these are colour correction tools. So as you can see, this is slightly green still and a little bit yellow, so you can take out the red tones, you can take out blue tones, you can take out green tones. So for this I'm going to use the midtones, and I'm going to take out some of that green that's still in there, and then I'm also going to add in some extra blue, and again this should just cool everything down and make it look more like I've taken it in natural light. You can actually see a before and after with this if you press on the photo, so that's how it looked before and that is after my edits. So you can see there's a lot of difference already. So I'm going to save that one, and I always save it as the maximum size. So then I open up VSCO Cam and I'm going to import it into here. This is where I put a filter on my photo, and I actually bought the massive pack of filters, so I have so many in here. I actually only use 2 of them though. I've kind of gone through phases of using different ones. I like A6, C1, I like F2 and S2 as well, but at the moment I'm using HB2. I really like that one. It kind of desaturates everything and gives it a little bit more contrast, so I will use that one and then save it and export it. Now the only thing I don't like about VSCO cam is that you can't layer up filters, and I like to layer filters because I find it gives it a bit more of a personal edge. It's not just one filter that a lot of other people will be using. So I actually import the photo with the first filter back into VSCO cam, and this is where I get told off sometimes by some people because it is a bit of a hassle. So I will re-import that one with the filter on top of it, and then go back in and put a second filter on. And for that, I'm going to use the other H1, this is HB1. They are quite different. This one is more contrasty and this one is a bit more blue toned. And I'll just probably put about an 8 or a 7 of that on. So this is where you probably thought I would be done. Nope, I am not finished yet. This is where I go into the photography folder and I'll open up Photoshop Express. This is really good for final tweakings and just making things a bit brighter and a bit sharper. So I'll import that photo into here, and I mainly just use the highlights on this. I find this is a really good one at just brightening the highlights, so you can see the difference that that makes. And this is where I'll give it a little bit of a tint, and this just kind of gives it a bit of a purpley bluey tone. I usually use about 2 or 3, and then I'll also turn the temperature down just a tiny bit as well. This makes it a bit more blue toned. I'll also just turn the vibrance down just a tiny bit so it's slightly less saturated, and I'll also turn up the sharpness. And actually this is probably the best app for sharpening. It really gets the details very fine and very crisp. So that is done. I do have one last little thing that I'll sometimes do on photos. This is a bit of a nitpicky thing and you don't have to do this. This is just me being a bit pedantic. But if your photos aren't looking quite as white as you like them to, if they're looking a bit yellowy toned still, I really like to use FaceTune, and this is not for the reason that you may think. So this has a really amazing tool which is called Whiten. I think this is actually for whitening your teeth. I don't ever use it for that. So this side looks a little bit dark compared to here, so I can just basically scrub that over and whiten it up. And over here as well there's a few shadows, so you can just sort of colour it in almost. This photo probably isn't the best one to demonstrate that, but it really does make a bit of a difference. You can see there just whitening up everything that's a bit grey looking. So this is the final outcome. This is the original photo that I started with, and then this is the final outcome. So you can see there's quite a lot of difference. So that is basically everything that I do for my Instagram photos. That's how they end up looking like this. I use the same filters and the same process in every photo, but I just maybe tweak it slightly so there's not so much brightness, or maybe there's a little bit more. I'll quickly go through another one of these just so that you can see that whole process again. Let's edit a selfie, why not? So I'll do a little bit of brightening, maybe not quite that much, and then contrast, and then also clarify it slightly like I did with the other ones. I'll sharpen it in here, and then I'll also turn down the temperature a little bit. So the background in this one looks quite green again, so I'm going to go back to the mid-tones and take out some of that green. So it's taken out the green, but it's made it look a little bit too pinky and red, so I'll go back to that and I'll just take out some of the red tones. And you can kind of play with it, and it differs a lot between different photos, but you kind of end up knowing exactly what to do. So then I'll pop that back into the VSCO cam, and then just put those same filters on that I used before. So that's the HB2 filter. I'll probably put a lot less on a photo of myself, and then I'll save that one again and re-import it back into the VSCO cam. And then I'll put the second filter back on, and this one I'll probably put a lot less of again, so maybe about a 4. Save that, put it back into my camera roll, and then I'll open it up in Photoshop Express and just put up the highlights a little bit more. I like things to be very bright, if you couldn't tell, and I think this one needs a bit of contrast, so I'll add some of that in. And then I always do these two, so I'll always do the tint and then the temperature. So you'll probably be able to see a bit more of the difference that FaceTune makes with this photo in particular. And no, I don't tune my face, I literally just use this one whiten tool. The background here is a bit darker than this side, so I just sort of scrub it over, and it makes it a bit brighter, but it also sort of greys it out so it's not quite as green. So you can see I've kind of gone over a little bit on my hair, and I basically look like I have either way too much dry shampoo in there or grey highlights. So for that, you just click on the eraser tool, just zoom in and then get rid of the bits that shouldn't be there. So that is the difference that this one's made. You can see that actually really changes the way the whole photo looks. So it gets rid of all the dark patches in the background, and it just makes everything a little bit whiter. So that is one of my favourite tips when it comes to editing my photos. And that is it. That is all my tips and tricks for you. So hopefully you managed to get something from all of this, whether it was some tips, some inspiration for your own Instagram. And then for those of you that just found this pretty ridiculous, because I know how obsessively crazy I am about editing my Instagram photos, I hope you had a great time too. We can all laugh at ourselves. I would love it if you guys would link all your Instagrams down below if you want me to go and have a look at them, or we can all just have a big Instagram fest. That would be great. So that is it from me today. Don't forget to give this video a like if you did enjoy it, and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you all soon. Bye!